What's up, YouTube? Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. So, there's a new AVGN video uploaded today. He's reviewing a game that he had actually gone over on his Confused About Video Game Sequels video from like 2006, I think it was. So he hasn't really he's only mentioned it like a couple times in passing since then. Anyways, Final Fantasy VI, which here in the U.S. is Final Fantasy III, because in outside Japan, Square skipped Final Fantasy II, 3, and 5. So we got 4, which is called 2 here, and we got 6, which is called 3 here, and then Final Fantasy VII came out on PlayStation, and it's like, what the hell happened? Anyway, let's do this. Interesting Christmas one. I heard Final Fantasy VI is among the greatest Final Fantasy games ever made. Kefka is an incredibly memorable villain. And that's interesting because Final Fantasy VII is often considered one of the best, if not the best ever made, and Sephiroth is a very interesting villain. So, 6 and 7, there we go. That's their peak.
Clouds, lightning, ominous organ music, and then, ready for it? Final Fantasy III. When you saw this fiery font emerging from your CRT TV, burning across the room to your flannel couch, and heard those epic chords ringing out across the wallpapered walls of your wood-furnished living room, littered with fruit roll-up wrappers and Sunday newspaper comics, you knew you were about to play a Super Nintendo game that was truly super and unlike anything that came before. Right away, you're told of an ancient war that reduced the world to a scorched wasteland, and magic simply ceased to exist. Now, machine energy is on the rise. But there are some who would enslave the world by reviving the dread destructive force known as magic. Can it be that those in power are on the verge of repeating a senseless and deadly mistake? Now that's taking video game storytelling to a new level.
I actually got to play
Kind of
this
goes
game
above
sometime.
and beyond Go Rescue the Princess or some shit. The
Yeah.
main story opens on a snowy peak. We're introduced to 2 soldiers of an empire and Terra, who's under their control. The soldiers are named Vix and Wedge, or Biggs and Wedge in the Japanese version, a Star Wars reference. They're in search of an elusive magical being known as an Esper, who they have reason to believe is hibernating somewhere in the icy caves. They mention that before Terra was under their control, she had fried 50 of their soldiers in under 3 minutes. It already raises many questions and builds mystery. Are you enthralled yet? This is some good shit. The 3 march into the snow in their mech suits, known as Magitech armors, as we realize we just watched a pre-credit sequence to a video game. We watch them trek through the 3D Winter Wonderland with those Mode 7 graphics and that emotional cinematic score as we anticipate the adventure that awaits us. We are about to play the greatest video game of all time. That's right. We're doing this. And what better time? Because I think of this as a winter break type of game. I remember the time off from school, and also there's something about the cold, downcast, melancholy state the game embodies. Also, with the holiday season, I thought I'd give myself a little bit of a gift, because last time I played one of the worst, most fiery, hellish games of all time. But now, I play its winter polar opposite. But with good games, sometimes there comes a different kind of trauma. Let me tell you a little story here. As you probably know, this is not a game you just pick up and play for 20 minutes before you hop on the school bus, or even a couple hours after you've done your homework. This is a game that you chip away at over several months. It's a work in progress, a hobby of sorts that you invest yourself in. This is a game you catch up on while you're sick. It was the longest, most all-consuming game of its era. It came out in '94, but sometime I'd say by the summer of '95, I had finally made it to the final area, Kefka's Tower. The finale was in sight. My heart was pounding, my pulse was racing. I was approaching the end of the most epic gaming experience of my life. All of a sudden, the game froze.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
the screen broke up
Oh
into glitchy
no.
colors. Through
That's
decades of
horrible.
foggy memory, I'd say it looked something like this. I had never seen anything like that happen before, nor have I ever seen anything like it since. The game restarted, or I had to reset, I can't remember which. The opening scene replayed, which shouldn't happen, so that was a bad omen. So nervously, I waited until I got to the first save point, and there, sure enough, all my save data was erased.
Oh my god. That's horrible. Jeez, and he got that far in the game. That's insane. When he pointed this out, it reminded me of something else. So, I grew up in the 90s and I played a lot of Super Nintendo. I missed out on the Final Fantasy games growing up, sadly, but like, I played Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past like a lot back then, and I still play it occasionally nowadays. Like I play on my Switch now, but like, I remember this weird thing happened, and I don't know why it did. I don't know what caused it, but it was one of the weirdest things I ever encountered in a video game. Um, so I was using Link's running attack, his running shoes, right? And I ran to a tree to try to get some items to fall out of the tree. But one time when I did that, and if I recall, I was near Hyrule Castle when I did it, like across the river, not in front of the castle. And I ran to the tree, and then after I hit the tree, the screen went completely pitch black, and I heard these sounds that don't go together and don't make sense. There was sounds of like a storm, kind of like the storm you hear when you first start the game and it's raining. You know, except you don't hear any of the rain falling; you just hear the thunder. And in this case, and at the same time as this weird storm noise was happening, I heard the flute that you play, that you get in the Dark World from the guy, from the guy who's really good with the flute, which that flute you can later use in Hyrule to have that weird flying duck thing that comes out of the statue take you from one place to another in Hyrule, but not in the Dark World. So yeah, I ran to a tree, which was a normal thing to do in Link to the Past because you can get items to fall out from the tree when you do so. But after doing so, the screen went pitch black, and the only thing you could hear was thunder and the flute playing at the same time. Now, I was really young when that happened. I was a young kid. I was like, what the hell? I was like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was so bizarre. But yeah, I had to obviously turn off the game. The good news is my save files were still there. They weren't lost. I know there was a game I played, a classic game I played where my save files once disappeared, but I don't know specifically. I also do recall Glover was really weird in this way. Glover on the N64. For some reason, when I saved the game on the fifth boss, the Frankenstein monster, like I got to the Frankenstein monster because that boss is really hard to beat, right? So I saved the game, and then after I turned it off, after I turned the game back on, I load up and the save file's gone. Just that save file's gone. And I actually found out from a review of Glover that I saw like a couple years later that that's actually a normal occurrence, at least in the N64 game. I'm like, what? Why? The fuck? So I don't know. Anyways, back to AVGN. James Rolfe. Oh my god, that sucks. He got so far in the game and it did that. That's horrible. I will point out something else kind of weird has happened to me before, And this was in Chrono Trigger, which once again I unfortunately missed out on the Super Nintendo. I didn't really play RPGs back in the day. I played them later. And then I learned that growing up in the 90s, I would have loved playing RPGs back then, but I just never got around to them until much later. I mean, the Super Nintendo was basically the golden age of RPGs. Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy 4 and 6, especially 6, which he's playing in this review. Um, I guess Secret of Mana doesn't exactly count. I mean, it is basically an RPG, it's just not turn-based. It's, action-based. But you can level up and stuff in that, and Lufia 2, and a whole bunch of of other games. Super Mario RPG and Legend of the 6 Stars or the 7 Stars, whatever. Super Mario RPG. There were a lot of amazing RPG games from back in the day, from the Super Nintendo. But yeah, there's this weird thing that happened on Chrono Trigger, and the first time I played Chrono Trigger, I had it downloaded to my Wii, and this happened a few times, and I don't know why this happened. I don't know if it was just an issue with just the Wii Virtual Console version, or if it has happened on the original cartridge or something as well. Mine was downloaded, but to the Wii. But sometimes when I like got out of a room or entered a room, whatever. I think this only happened on the world map. This only really happened on the world map, where the perspective is different. Your characters are smaller because you're seeing from a farther view. Suddenly, the music would stop. Like, it would just completely stop. There would be no more music. Music plays whether you're whether you're on the field or on the world map. It plays. It doesn't matter. It does. And yeah, this happened a few times to me, where suddenly the music just completely stopped when I was on the world map, walking around with the perspective different. And then I try to enter, a building in this world, or whatever, wherever the hell it is I go, enter the city, whatever. And as soon as I enter, the screen fades to black, the game stops. I can't do anything besides press the home button on the Wii and press Wii menu or reset. Weird. I don't know why it did that, and it happened to me a few times. And it only did that when the glitch would make the music stop playing. So basically, I would know it's about to happen. It's going to stop the game if I heard the music just stop. It was bizarre, to say the least. At the very least, though, I didn't lose my save data, but the problem was if it had been a long time since I saved, yeah, I could end up being sent pretty far back. So that's not good. Anyways, let's go back to the review. I know I've been talking about this for a long time, but James mentioning this just made me think about these other weird things that have happened with my games in the past.
True story. I was definitely an angry nerd that day.
Oh,
especially
yeah.
for a kid with no real life responsibilities, no family to support, nothing like that. No, having your Final Fantasy game erased was a big fucking problem. And that was how my childhood experience with that game ended. And in almost 30 years since, I never again attempted to beat the game. I just could not bear to invest myself in it so deeply again. It's like losing a pet and then deciding to get another pet only to one day again face the inevitable. It's fucking sad, I'm sorry. But that theme of loss is commonly cited as being a big part of the game's storyline. And now that so much time has passed, maybe it's time to give it a shot again. Because I'm going to do it. This is my second chance. I'm going to complete my childhood.
There you go.
When this game first came out, it was the most expensive game I ever bought with my own money. It was close to $80 when most
Okay.
Super Nintendo games were closer to $60. I distinctly remember walking into KB Toys at the mall with my saved up cash. I remember the clerk agreeing that it was overly pricey, but to be fair, he said this game takes like 5 to 8 months to beat, which back then was a big deal. The manual
Yeah.
was almost like a whole D&D book full of character stats and information. It even came with a double-sided map. Final Fantasy III was the biggest game of
Wow,
its
what a
time.
bounce, what a run.
Also, I just gotta say, I know, I've been calling it Final Fantasy III because I'm playing the Super Nintendo version and that's what it's called. Of course, the Super Famicom version is called 6, which we all know is the true sequential number, but back then, I had no idea, and neither
Yeah,
did anyone
obviously.
else I knew. Not until 7 came out on PlayStation and I was like, what? How did we get to 7 already?
Yeah.
Now, everyone knows the story. I even covered it way back in my chronologically confused
That's
episode.
true.
The
I
mix-up
mentioned that
has
earlier,
long
yeah.
been cleared. Everyone calls it 6 now.
Yep.
But the cartridge still says 3.
Yeah, everyone calls it 6 now, yet on the SNES Classic, they're still calling it 3. Kind of annoying, Nintendo. Sweetheart? Yes? Okay, I'm sorry about the hamper. Are you alright, babe? You know what? That might be a good idea. Okay. Alright, I love you, babe. I've proved it every day. Alright, sweetheart.
Title screen still says 6 now. Logically confused episode. Everyone knows the story. I even covered it way back in my chronologically confused episode. The mix-up has long been cleared. Everyone calls it 6 now. But the cartridge still says 3. The title screen still says 3. Every time I play it, it still says 3. I tried giving it the finger and telling it, fuck you, you're wrong. But the game still says 3. Fact.
Damn it.
So what made this game different from other fantasy adventure games like Zelda? Well, everything. This was the first RPG I ever played. My first glimpse of it was at a friend's house. I remember seeing the battle screen and wondering, why are the characters just slashing at the air? Why are there a bunch of numbers popping up? I wasn't used to this more automated, luck-based fight system. What is this, I thought?
wouldn't say
Some
it's
kind of
luck-based.
flashy board game turned into a video game? I actually wasn't that far off, having already owned those role-playing board games like Hero Quest and Dragon Strike.
Okay.
I wasn't fully aware how far back its history went with D&D. I didn't know RPGs were a thing, but after Final Fantasy III on Super Nintendo, I sure as hell did.
RPGs are a lot of fun because there's a lot of strategy involved, and it's just the adventure is just so mesmerizing.
Anyone who's
just very
played the game
time-consuming.
knows how it works, but basically, you build up a large ensemble of heroes. You travel through towns, caves, and dungeons, collecting items, fighting monsters, meeting people, gaining spells and abilities, and steadily advancing the storyline. On paper, it's like your typical adventure game, but one of the things that made it so extra special for the time was the massive amount of weapons and accessories to equip
Yeah,
yourself
exactly,
with,
yeah.
and all the magic and skills to learn. Once you start acquiring
yeah,
the
definitely,
espers,
the magic
you can
and skills,
assign them
yes.
to characters so they can learn certain spells as you go on. This all gives the player the freedom of customizing your characters however you see fit and trying out different combinations of abilities. Speaking of customizing, just the fact that you can name all of them was a fresh concept. Sure, you could do it in games before, but not with that many characters. There's also lots of parts where the characters split up into multiple groups, so you get to pick who goes in each group and who leads. The characters are really the core element of why this game was so groundbreaking. Never had there been such an amazing ensemble, all with their own unique personalities and rich backstories. The
Yeah.
camaraderie of these characters really shines through. It's all about building the team. It's Wizard of Oz. It's Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Over the course of the adventure, you come to know them almost like real people. And the fact they can achieve this with little pixelated sprites and minimal graphic technology is a major
I
accomplishment.
wouldn't say it's minimal.
Passion
The graphics
always
are damn
comes
good
through in spite of
for the time.
limitations. There isn't even a clear main character. They all seem just as important. If I had to pick one, I'd say Terra, whose father was an Esper, which is where her gifted magical abilities come from. Much of her story is about trying to find her identity and place in the world. Having fought on the Empire's side through mind control, she now tries to rectify that by fighting alongside the heroes. Celeste.
Alright, I've realized that my webcam is being retarded, so that means I have to do editing to fix this problem later on. That's frustrating. Well, we're back. Thanks a lot, you stupid webcam. Like, my goodness, that damn webcam. No, I'm not. Not. That was light. That was gentle. I'm not going to break the chair. All right, let's continue. This video is going to be a long one, and now I got to edit it because I had to re-record because I had to record again because my webcam decided to be stupid. Gonna have to back it up a little just to be sure.
Or she now gifted important spite of limitations is amazing. This with little to know that of Oz really unique personalities, and had there been are really the core element who goes in each group and who leads. The characters are really the core element of why this game was so groundbreaking. Never had there been such an amazing ensemble, all with their own unique personalities and rich backstories. The camaraderie of these characters really shines through. It's all about building the team. It's Wizard of Oz. It's Lord of the Rings. Over the course of the adventure, you come to know them almost like real people. And the fact they can achieve this with little pixelated sprites and minimal graphic technology is a major accomplishment. Passion always comes through in spite of limitations. There isn't even a clear main character. They all seem just as important. If I had to pick one, I'd say Terra, whose father was an Esper, which is where her gifted magical abilities come from. Much of her story is about trying to find her identity and place in the world. Having fought on the Empire's side through mind control, she now tries to rectify that by fighting alongside the heroes. Celeste, or Celis, also used to be on the Empire's side and has been genetically powered through magic. She eventually turns against the Empire. Locke is a thief, or treasure hunter as he prefers, who's bitter after his girlfriend was killed by the Empire. He eventually has a romantic yet complicated relationship with Celeste. Edgar is the king of Figaro who pretends to be in alliance with the Empire, but is really on the good guy's side. And on top of that, his entire castle is set on fire. So he's also had his share of tragedy. He's a little bit sketchy though. What the fuck? Sabin is Edgar's brother who leads the royal life to be free.
Alright, I read the whole thing myself, but I'll just read it out loud in case.
He's a little bit sketchy though.
What's wrong, lover boy? How old are you? 10, why?
What the fuck? Sabin is Edgar's
like
brother who leads the royal life to be free. He looks like Guile, and his blitz moves use similar button commands to Street Fighter. Cayenne is a samurai-type character.
Like
his town's water supply was
Sort of.
poisoned by the main villain Kefka, killing almost everyone, including his wife and son. Shadow is a more mysterious type of character, a ninja assassin, an outlaw vigilante. He has his loyal dog by his side, and he always comes and goes unexpectedly. The best is when he swoops in to help during a key battle. Gao is sort of a Tarzan-type character, living in the wild, raised by animals. Maybe that's why he scoots on the ground. Ugh, like when your pet leaves those shit comets. There's also Setzer, the Han Solo-like gambler with the fastest airship, which happens to be called the Falcon. There's the little kid Realm and her surrogate...
I think that's another Star Wars reference right there, just calling it the Falcon. Come on. Millennium Falcon.
grandfather Strago. There's Golgo with the... There's the little kid Realm and her surrogate grandfather Strago. There's Golgo with the power of Mimic. And Umaro, the brute Yeti, who's so physical, he actually throws the other characters.
That's
Look
awesome.
at that. And my favorite is Mog. What's his deal? Well, he's a Moogle. I don't know. I just love this guy. So fucking cute. So with all these
Okay.
characters, it really shows how far games had come by that point.
Yeah,
Long gone
absolutely.
were the days when it was just pick the guy or pick the girl. Now it was so much more than that. And those are just the playable characters. We can't forget Kefka. Kefka is possibly the greatest video game villain ever conceived. He suffered from an experimental magic infusion by the Empire, which made him go insane. After rising to power, he's become a psychotic tyrant who is hell-bent on senseless destruction. He backs it up with cynical, pessimistic ideology, making statements like, "There's no point of clinging to life when everyone must eventually die." The dude is messed up. Kefka has caused so much turmoil and given all the characters their own individual reasons to consider him a mortal enemy. Despite ripping the world apart, he brings these characters together with a common goal. So the game is very heavy on characters and story, and that usually is the most discussed aspect of the game. As far as the actual gameplay goes, it's innovative as well, but does it have some flaws? Sure. Probably, but in this context, they are forgivable, especially given how pioneering this game was.
Yeah.
The random encounters on the overworld screen can get a little annoying, and the leveling up and grinding can sometimes feel monotonous, even though the combat screens are so strangely addicting.
Yeah.
Leveling up to max can not only take an insane amount of time, but can also make the game too easy. Also, when you're in a town, sometimes people can get in your way. Come on! Come on! Move your ass! Come on, dude. Come on, get out of my way, you fuck! Oh, no. Come on. Out of my way. Walking in general can feel a little clumsy. You can't go diagonal. Squaresoft later corrected this with Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
Man, now that's a fucking good game, too.
Oh, yes.
Maybe that's the other greatest game of all time. The
That's
movement
an
is
incredible
much
game,
smoother.
yeah.
I also like how you can see all the characters following you. But in Final Fantasy, they all sort of combine into one character. I never understood that. You know, one time I was working at a convenience store and this guy came in and then he split up like his body divided into 4 people. Yeah, turned out he was with his family. It is cool that the game shows you how much time you've put in, although I don't know how accurate that is because it's possible to leave the game on while you're not playing. Also, why does it tell you how many steps you've taken? Are the characters wearing an early version of a step tracker for fitness? One of the things I hate is whenever there's a boss or enemy that has a fatal attack that nukes your entire party. So you have to time it with a Life 3 spell or anything to revive at least one member or something to avoid it. This doesn't feel like strategy. It feels almost like a cheat. When the game is unfair, you gotta be unfair. I am aware that sometimes it's possible to get soft-locked. Yeah, it's rare, but say for example one character dies and the other one in the party has pause casted on him, situations like that can really suck because now you lost a whole lot of progress. Let's talk about the abundance of attacks and spells. First of all, the characters all have their own special abilities. Kyan has sword tech where you charge up an attack, Shadow throws weapons from your inventory and has his interceptor move, Mog has all the crazy dances, Edgar has tools like a drill, and a chainsaw complete with a Jason Voorhees mask.
That's so cool.
I don't use his Bioblaster that much, but I love how it looks. Strago has the lure ability to learn the enemy's spells. Love how it looks. Complete with a Jason Voorhees mask.
So cool.
I don't use his Bioblaster that much, but I love how it looks. Strago has the lure ability to learn the enemy's spells. And because Setzer is a gambler, his moves are based on a slot machine outcome.
That's weird.
Gao has Rage, where he uses the enemy's attacks. Sabin has the Blitz moves, like I said. It can suck when you mess up the button command, but these moves are some of the most powerful in my experience, especially the Bum Rush. But my favorite might be the suplex. I mean, the dude can pick up an entire train. That's hardcore.
Do you do that?
As I already mentioned, you can teach all the characters spells with the Espers, but also you can use the actual Espers to cast massive spells of their own. There's some amazing psychedelic graphics here. It does things you wouldn't even imagine were possible on the Super Nintendo. I
Yeah.
remember when I first saw this stuff, I was like, what the hell? It seemed like my TV screen was melting. Then there's the more comedic Esper spells like Cat Rain. Yeah, just a cartoon cat that comes by. The design of the enemies is a work of art in itself. They differ from the tiny pixelated hero characters since they're so detailed and can be very large. Take a look at Atma. Is that thing intimidating or what?
Yeah,
How about
definitely.
Chupan, Poltergeist,
Chupan looks like
Behemoth,
Gengar.
Doom, or Hades Gygus Colossus? That's metal as fuck.
Yeah.
Final word on the graphics? With all the spells and enemies, it's a marvel to look at. It's some of the best stuff to come out of the SNES. But it doesn't stop there. The sound effects are amazing, and the music by Nobuo Uematsu sounds like it could have been the score for a major film. There's been lots of great video game soundtracks up to this point, but this took it to a whole new level.
Yeah, I agree.
Some of the best music is featured in the opera scene. And speaking of that, this is one of the most memorable scenes. Fans have praised it for its storytelling and its epic nature. There's no denying what an ambitious achievement this was for gaming.
Yeah.
But the actual gameplay, my god, this is the most tedious part. So basically, in the story, you're Celeste taking the place of Maria, an opera singer. The whole thing is a scheme to trick Setzer to get him into your party. But anyway, what sucks about it is you have to remember the song lyrics, which you find prior to that. But if you mess any of it up, you have to start all over again. And there's about 30 minutes of a stretch where you can't save the game. As a kid, you did
Yikes.
not want to get called to dinner or get interrupted in any way, or God forbid have a power outage. Back then,
Yeah.
before autosaving and sleep mode, and before the internet existed as we know it today, we would often get stuck and had to ask friends to share information on how to get through.
Yeah,
Not even
that's true.
Nintendo Power offered much help to this game. I mean, how
Wow.
could it? But let's talk about one of the games.
Yeah, that was definitely a frustrating thing of the time. Oh my god, you terrible, terrible webcam. Well, we're back, and this webcam is really pissing me off. It's just refusing to continue to work, and now I have to do more editing. Anyways, what I was going to say is, yeah, that was definitely a frustrating thing of the time. Instead of just being able to save wherever you want in the game, you had to find save points. Places to save in the game. And what's ridiculous about it is that it wasn't impossible to program a game to allow you to save wherever you want. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past came out a couple years before Final Fantasy VI did, and you could literally save anywhere you want in the game. You just pressed select, and it would show a tiny menu of either continue or save and quit. Wish it was save and continue, but no, if you press save, it quits the game. And then, unfortunately, when you do that, you don't actually start exactly where you left off. If you're in Hyrule when you saved, you get to choose to start from either your house, the Sanctuary, or Death Mountain. If you're in the Dark World, and you save, when you load the game back up, you'll start on top of that pyramid in the middle of the Dark World that takes place of Hyrule Castle. Yeah, so that sucks. It doesn't let you start exactly where you left off, but at the very least, you can literally save at any point. You didn't have to actually find a save point. So the fact that A Link to the Past, a game that came out in 1992, allowed you to save from anywhere in the game, there isn't really any excuse for games that came out later on the Super Nintendo to require you to go to a save point somewhere. I mean, it was ridiculous. With Super Metroid, which is my favorite Super Nintendo game and one of my favorite video games ever made, you had to find save points in that game. But the difference in that game is that I mean, you find them on the map with ease. They're never really far apart from each other, and you don't really have to go out of your way to save. It's very easy to do so. Very easy to find the save points. Um, the fact that AVGN just pointed out that you could have a point in Final Fantasy VI where you'll play for 30 straight minutes without even saving, yikes. That's pretty messed up. Um, for example, I actually don't remember how you save on Chrono Trigger. Like I said, I downloaded that to my Wii. This was a decade ago when I did so. And because it was on my Wii, I didn't actually have to like save the old-fashioned way from the original game cartridge. I could just press the home button and then press Wii menu, and the next time I load up the game, it will actually load exactly where I was, like a kind of like a save state. Um, so I actually literally forgot how I actually saved in that game, even though I had beaten the game before. um, anyway, I don't know, just bizarre. Let's continue.
Most pivotal chapters of all. I mean, how could it? But let's talk about one of the game's most pivotal chapters of all. It happens after Kefka opens the gate to the Esper world, which causes a major geological event where the entire island becomes the floating continent. The group drops from the airship onto the island and proceeds to embark on a massive dungeon-like sequence, navigating through an elaborate and unstable maze of crumbling areas and teleportation holes and fighting all kinds of difficult monsters. The fact that I have to gloss over this part of the experience says so much about the importance of what happens next. At this point in the game, you've played for so long, you would be more than satisfied if this were the final confrontation. Doesn't it seem like it? Kefka kills the Emperor, officially making himself the head villain, and he unleashes the power of the gods. If this were an Indiana Jones movie, this is where the villain would be destroyed by their own recklessness. It has all the formula of a classic confrontation that would be followed by a final peaceful resolution, but no. You race a timer to leave the continent, and when you reach the edge to leap back onto the airship, you're given the option to wait for Shadow, or else you permanently lose him. As if you're not already shitting your pants, this guy makes you run the timer down to almost the last possible fucking second. After this, we witness a global catastrophe unlike anything before in a game. The ground rips apart, people fall into earthquakes, the airship is torn in half, everyone is scattered and lost, and then we're met with a black screen with a simple line that resonates so much.
Wow.
On that day, the world was changed forever. Imagine playing this as a kid. Back in the day, before the internet as we know existed, we didn't know what was going to happen next. I mean, this could be the ending. It could just be one big miserable downer, or we could be nowhere near the end. Celeste awakens on a small deserted island being cared for by Sid, who's like a parental figure and has a lot of history with the Final Fantasy series. Anyway, after she gains consciousness, Sid succumbs to his own sickness, and you need to care for him by catching and feeding him fish. He can either live or die, which doesn't change a whole lot with the outcome of the game, but if he dies, you witness the most depressing scene of any game I've ever played. Celeste goes to the top of a cliff, reminisces about Locke and how everyone's gone, and with nothing left in her life, she tries to end it all. Looking back, this is the darkest and most shocking thing I've ever seen in a game that was played by kids. But Celeste survives, finds out Locke is still alive, takes a raft, and embarks on a new quest. By going in such a dark place, the game is able to make a point that no matter how bleak things seem, there's always hope. When you think about it, this is why Kefka is such a relevant antagonist, because he thinks life is meaningless. He uses his own trauma to spread despair and bring down all the others. He tries to make all the other characters give up.
That's
Do you want to give up after how far you've come?
Not really.
Hell no! Even though you've lost everything and now have to find where your friends have gone, collect all new items, and explore the transformed landscape, which is now called the World of Ruin. This idea was not a brand new concept. Zelda: Link to the Past had a similar idea with the light and dark worlds.
Yes, that's true.
But the way it's done here is entirely different and more relatable. As you go on, all that talk of the previous world and how things used to be makes so much more sense as an adult. As a kid, how are you supposed to reminisce on the good old days? You have to grow up and experience life first.
Yeah.
So for that reason, what I'm trying to say here is that not only does this game hold up today, it's actually better as an adult. Geez, all that talk of how the world went to shit is eerily similar to what happened in the spring of 2020 when it wasn't even possible to function in the same way or do the same things. But we made that climb back. We restored. We're fucking back. And likewise, this game gives you that feeling of building back. Because now you have to play the rest. In the words of Rambo, nothing is over. In the words of the angry video game nerd, we're only halfway through the fucking game!
Damn. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't grow up playing Final Fantasy, but I definitely will point out, like, he has a really good point about how it's two different worlds and how it was unexpected. And I remember when I was playing The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past as a kid back in the 90s, and how, I beat what I thought was the main villain of the game, Aghanim, I think, Aghanim, or something like that, that wizard. Although I noticed that the boss wasn't really that hard when I faced him. But I beat him, in Hyrule Castle. And then, after beating him, I get transported to the Dark World, and I'm on top of that pyramid that's taking the place of where Hyrule Castle would be. And then I realize, wait, what? There's a lot more game to go than I thought. I'm in like a dark version of Hyrule that's the same size as the regular Hyrule. And there's, more dungeons to beat and more items to get and all this stuff. And I can go back and forth between, and thanks to having the magic mirror, I can go back and forth between, the Dark World and Hyrule, So, yeah, that unlocks even more things because sometimes there's some areas in Hyrule you can't reach unless you are in the Dark World first. So, yeah, there you go. And I remember they only revealed where one of the dungeons was in the Dark World, but then after beating that dungeon, there's 6 more of them. Like, holy shit, there were only like 3 major dungeons in Hyrule. I mean, there was Hyrule Castle, but that wasn't like a major dungeon. It was, anyways, yeah, there were only like 3 major dungeons in Hyrule, and now there's 7 in the Dark World. Like, holy shit, So it was so I definitely get what he meant. Like, holy crap, I'm not even, like, at that point, I was basically not even halfway through the game, even though I thought I had already beat the game, by going against who appeared to be the main villain in Hyrule Castle. Anyways, let's continue. I mean, there's obviously a lot more games since then that do that kind of thing, but Final Fantasy VI is a great example of that for sure, especially with how it relates so much to how, in real life, the world does kind of, it has its ups and downs, just like in the game. Huh.
Look at all these stairs.
There's a door. I just saw a door.
Look at all these fucking stairs!
No, seriously. That's a door. That's a door right there. Are you able to control your character here, or is the controller, or is she moving on her own? Because if you can control your character here, try that door over there. What's in there?
Look at all these fucking stairs! Wait a minute. I'm having a flashback.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
When we get to 20, tell me. I'm gonna throw up. So once you've gained back all your characters, leveled them up enough, learned enough spells, and built up all your resources, you can make the call and go to Kefka's tower. You divide into 3 parties. The choices you make are crucial because each group is going to be taking an entirely different path.
Okay.
You're going to have to survive through many battles, so unless you spend enough time grinding, you might end up with one party that's way weaker than the others. So hopefully you have their powers spread out wisely. This is it. The final.
Wow. Okay. You know what? The Pokemon series, I think, can learn a thing or two from this. Because the idea in Pokemon is that you get your entire group of 6 Pokemon and you try to level all of them up to make all of them really powerful. But actually, in a lot of the Pokemon games, here's the way you win. Here's the easiest way to win. You pick your starter Pokemon, make sure it's one who's strong against like the first gym leader or 2 or whatever. Just keep leveling up the same Pokemon because its level is going to be so much higher than anything you'll ever face that it won't even matter what its weaknesses are because it's that much more powerful. I'm not even kidding. Like people who like speed run Pokemon, they use one. They don't get a group of 6 because then you have to level all of them up and it takes a lot longer. It's more fun that way because you can switch between them and strategize, and that's how I play. I prefer to have a team of 6, but I'm just saying, you can totally cheese the game depending on which game. I don't know how it is in ninth generation, but a lot of the early Pokemon games you could just cheese it all the way through with one Pokemon. So, this idea where you actually have all these characters and then they can split into different groups like that, that's smart. That makes it so you do have to actually level up all the characters, divide the time between them so you can level all of them up so that when they're in groups, they're all strong. That is smart. Like, and this was a game that came out, was it 1994, was it? Um, wow. Definitely. There you go. There you go. That's pretty clever. Um, the only other game I recall that I've played that I recall, is an RPG that you actually have these groups. Okay, it's not groups you really choose, but well, it sort of is. And you're going to be surprised by this, but Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. Yes, that one and only Sonic RPG, which I would love to have seen a sequel to, but it never happened. Especially with that cliffhanger ending. Like what the fuck. But anyway, sometimes your characters are split into just 2 different groups, and but the thing is, in that game, there isn't like this kind of strategy that's going on in Final Fantasy VI. Um, the experience you gain in that game is different. It's not like I think even characters you don't have in your party gain experience, so you don't even really have to worry. They'll level up too. Same thing. That's actually how it goes in Super Mario RPG. As a matter of fact, at least on the original Super Nintendo, characters that are not in your party can actually will gain experience too, and they can level up. And don't get all mad about that. As well, there's no strategy. Well, in a lot of the more recent Pokemon games, you're going to have an experience share, and Pokemon that you're not actually using in battle will gain some experience too. Anyways, let's continue.
Final challenge and the place where my game glitched.
Oh yeah, and I think even in Chrono Trigger, which came out not too long after Final Fantasy VI, and is from the same company, Square, now called Square Enix. I think even in that game, characters who are not in your party would gain experience too, and they could level up. So, it's not unheard of. But no, that's really interesting how you have to strategize and kind of train them all up so that if you split into a group, you have all your groups are strong, so you don't have a group that's too weak and you can't progress.
That's way weaker than the others. So hopefully you have their powers spread out wisely.
Yeah.
This is it. The final challenge and the place where my game glitched.
Oh.
Remember that theme of loss? I lost my whole fucking game, and now it's time to get it back.
Yes.
Let me ask a question. Have you ever walked into a bathroom to fight a monster? Yeah, he's right near a toilet. That's a real shitty battle. Kefka's tower is an endurance. You'll be begging for a fucking save spot and have many close calls. Oh man, I hope it doesn't glitch again or anything else happens.
Yeah. Music sounded vaguely like Phantom of the Opera. No.
No! Just kidding. I have a battery backup. Yeah, it's all good. Oh, hey, look at that. The power's back on already. Okay, all right, let's beat this game quick. Santa?
Oh, Merry Christmas, nerd! Merry Christmas! There's nothing I love more than filming skits.
Okay.
Hey, Santa, I'm a little busy right now.
Are you still playing that game, nerd? Why, that was last year, wasn't it?
Fuck.
Oh, come sit on my lap, little boy.
Well, actually, I'm gonna sit you on your fucking lap. You take a fucking break.
You're cold Christmas, nerd.
Definitely don't show this to your kids. They're gonna cry. What?
Oh, it erased it all too? Oh, what the fuck? Oh, no, that's it. No. I'm not letting this go. I'm gonna beat it right here, right now.
That would take a lot of resolve.
Anyway, now that I'm back, I made it through Kefka's tower. The three parties reach the final area and regroup as one full ensemble for what can only be the climax.
I've done it. I've made it to the final battle.
Kefka gives a cynical speech about the meaningless of life, while the heroes counter, telling of what they've learned through the course of their adventure and the things they hold dear to them. Friendship, family, love, freedom. All their stories have come together in a satisfying way. And then Kefka calls for the greatest power of the universe. Standing on top a fiery peak, he says he'll create a monument to non-existence. This is when you start to wonder why this wasn't written as a stage play or feature film. Next, you determine the order your characters fight in, and then it's on.
Holy shit!
It's Satan! What else could it be? And if this wasn't enough, after he's defeated, the screen quakes and scrolls upward as you must face a whole tree of bosses. It's like bosses growing upon bosses upon bosses. Motherfuck!
Wow.
Oh my god!
What does this all supposed to be, anyway? It's like you're fighting Renaissance art. It's as if Michelangelo's The Last Judgment came to life and tried to kill you.
Holy
and the
shit.
haunting choir and organ music gives it an epic biblical effect.
Yeah.
Some have even said the 3 tiers of bosses represent hell, purgatory, and heaven. Dude, if
Holy
you have to
crap.
fight hell, purgatory, and heaven, you better just call it a day.
Yeah.
And we're not even at Kefka. Oh my God!
This is not Kefka as you'd expect. After becoming so familiar with that clowny little sprite, now he becomes a wicked angel floating against a golden cloudy sky blasting with heavenly light beams. They went above and beyond to make this the most epic final boss in gaming history. And I can't stress enough that if you're not leveled up properly and have enough Life 3 spells, you're just gonna get wiped out in one hit.
Ah! I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I did it! I did it! After almost 30 years, I finally beat Final Fantasy 3 or 6.
Yeah.
When you first hear that deafening crackle and see Kefka wither away into ashes, it's a feeling like no other. You just beat the greatest game of all time. And then you get a cinematic ending that goes on for over 20 minutes. Just sit back and enjoy, because for everything you went through, they knew when they made this game that you fucking deserve it.
Yes.
Another bucket list item checked off.
Yeah, definitely.
It was worth going back and reclaiming that magic. I feel nostalgia is at its most powerful this time of year. The magic of the holidays harkens back to a more innocent time.
It's true,
The game itself is about characters who are literally trying to reclaim magic from a bygone era. And I can say the magic inside this cartridge is still strong.
On the top tier of the good-ass scale, there's a few levels. Games that are good like Robin Hood, dope as a kaleidoscope, and fuck me through the fucking ceiling!
This was the first gaming masterpiece of its kind. And there's only room in life for so many games to make such a lasting impression on you when you're a kid. And for me, this is it. This is one of those. And now I feel a sense of closure that I finally completed it, having taken almost 30 years.
Yeah, definitely.
But now that that's finally done, guess what? There's 16 of them!
Yeah, that's true. There's 16 of them! Yeah, that's a good point. Alright, well, it's going to take some editing, but I'll do my best. I don't have as much time as I'd like to, but I'll try. This was actually uploaded this morning, like the actual episode. And I wanted to just do the reaction to it right then and there, but I had to go to work at my job I got. If I was still doing DoorDash, I could have just, recorded this and then started working a little later. But anyways, this was fun. I enjoyed watching this. I'm gonna have to actually go to bed pretty soon. I usually would be in bed by now. Usually go to bed around 10 or 10:30, not 11. Anyways, this definitely was not the typical AVGN review. Not typical at all. He showed anger a few times, but not as much and not as epic as he had done before. This was definitely more of like a nostalgia trip episode. Here's a question. Would you consider this an episode of Angry Video Game Nerd? James Rolfe was in character. He dressed up like him. but it wasn't really like an angry review. He was talking about a game that he loved growing up. And I mean, there was an appearance by Santa. I'm not even sure who played him. Oh, actually, no, it said so at the end, but I didn't read it. But anyway, this was really cool. um, Honestly, watching this does make me want to play the game. Although I feel like I'm just not going to have the time to really, play through the whole thing. It'll feel so overwhelming to try to get through the whole thing. But it would be fun. It definitely would be fun. Um, I'm pretty sure the fucking nerd, he's not going to review all 16 of them. um, Here's a fun fact that I think is still considered true. Obviously, there's more Mario games than like pretty much any video game franchise. But for main series Mario games, actually, there's fewer main series Mario games than there are Final Fantasy games, at least last I checked. That's how it was for a while. I think it might be the other way around now. But yeah, for a while that actually was the case, which is pretty crazy to think about. Um, Anyways, I enjoyed the review. It wasn't a typical AVGN review. It didn't even really feel like an AVGN episode that much. If I want to compare it to another AVGN episode, it is a lot like the Earthbound one. But the difference was he did mention things that really pissed him off in that game, like how incredibly difficult it is to do the teleportation in that game, and how some secrets were just like impossible to figure out. Some of them, which were required to progress in the game, um, which is just not fair, you know. But that said, this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this review. Um, I have played Final Fantasy VI just a little bit. Like, I barely played it. I used to have both an SNES Classic and an NES Classic. I have actually sold them both earlier this year. Um, but yeah, I first played Final Fantasy VI on the SNES Classic, which once again was called Final Fantasy III even on there, even though we all know it's Final Fantasy VI. Um, but I didn't play it that much, unfortunately. I believe the game is on the SNES Online on the Switch, so if I'll check, but I'm pretty sure it's there, so I could play it that way. Um, and it'll be fun, I would love to go through the whole game. It's very imaginative, very thoughtful storytelling. It is pretty crazy how such a story like that is a video game and not like a movie or stage play or whatever the case may be. You think it would be. Um, that said, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell icon to add me notifications. I do have more shorts coming, and I have the intention to post a Christmas related video based on my image poll I posted a couple days ago about favorite Christmas movie. Although I'm not sure whether I'll have the time for that or not. I'll try. Um, Anyways, thank you so much.